Howdy, folks. I wanted to tell you a tale about something that happened one day last spring. You see, I'd gone down to Sunset Lake to gather some colors for my friend Art Kraft. He said he was running low on reds, and I told him I knew just where to find some. So he gave me a few empty color pots, and I headed down to the lake. Now, what Art didn't know, and I didn't know until later, is that color gathering is illegal nowadays. It didn't used to be. I remember doing it all the time back when I was a boy. In fact, a lot of us did. Every evening, a whole crowd of us would gather down there by the lake shore, and we'd sit on our buckets and wait for the sun to go down. And as it neared the horizon, all the color in the world would slowly drain away. You'd see it up there in the sky, and then on the surface of the lake, and then it would be gone. But if you timed it just right, you could dip your bucket into the lake just as the colors disappeared, and your bucket would fill to the brim with reds and yellows and oranges. One time I tried it on blue. I saw the sky turning to violet, and I jumped in there and I started bailing, and I scooped out so much blue, the next day the sky looked sick. I mean, it was paler than usual, and the air felt thinner somehow, and my mom made me dump out all the blue, and the sky got better again eventually. So I can understand why they made color gathering illegal, but like I said, I didn't know about that until I got back home and started telling this tale all over town, and that earned me a visit from a very serious-looking uniformed officer. So it's a good thing I came back empty-handed, and here's how that happened. You see, I got out to the lake in time to catch a beautiful, fiery sunset, and I filled my color pots with some brilliant reds that I knew Art would be real pleased about. And then, as the sky was turning gray, I decided not to head straight back to town, but instead I made camp right there under this big old gnarly oak tree. And it was one of those early spring evenings when it's too cold for mosquitoes, but not so cold you can't sit outside and enjoy a quiet, peaceful evening as the night settles in. And then I heard it. A faint scrabbling sound coming from above. Chips of bark hit the ground. More scrabbling, closer now. Something was climbing down the trunk of that old oak tree, coming down the opposite side the way a squirrel does, using the tree as a shield or a hide-behind, only it sounded a lot bigger than a squirrel. It sounded like a bear. And it came down real slow, like it was hoping I would run, and it wanted to give me plenty of time to put my shoes on. It's more sporting that way. Only I didn't run, and I didn't put my shoes on either. See, if it was a bear, I wanted that bear to know we were on equal footing, and that even though I didn't have a snout full of razor-sharp fangs, at least I had bare feet. Down it came, closer and closer, claws digging in, claws the size of pitchforks, biting into that bark, bits of bark raining down, and then it was at the base of the tree. And just as its foot touched the ground, I leaned round that tree, and I got my first look at the monster. It was the strangest looking bear I'd ever seen. Its fur was like quills. It had porcupine quills for fur. This wasn't any old ordinary bear. It was a porcubear. Now I wished I'd put my shoes on. Porcubears aren't like other bears. They're not going to run you down if you decide to bolt. Why should they when they can just shoot quills at you? They can bring you down easy with a well-aimed volley of darts. Now if you're wearing shoes, at least the soles of your feet are protected. Although I'd be real careful about sitting down after such an encounter. So there I was, face to face with a giant porcubear, had to be 7 feet tall, with pins so long they could have turned me into shish kebab. I couldn't run. I couldn't even defend myself. I mean, what am I going to do, poke it with a stick? Nobody ever wins a poking contest with a porcupine. I stared at the beast. The beast stared at me. I growled a warning, and as blue as my witness, that thing grinned at me as it took a step in my direction. No time to think. I grabbed a color pot, unscrewed the lid, and threw it. But I missed, and all that red went sailing off into the night, and the porcupine almost chased after it. Bulls aren't the only ones can't stand the sight of red. Porcupines have been known to shoot quills at the setting sun. If the sunset lasted all night long, they'd go bald. But some of that red had spilled out onto my hands, and the porcupine knew it. It took a step in my direction. I picked up a second pot, and I threw that, and I missed again. I'm not a very good shot, I guess. And I was down to one color pot, and I unscrewed the lid, and I calculated the chances of hitting that porcupine on the third try, and deciding against it, I reared back, and I threw that pot as far as I could, hoping that this time the porcupine would chase after it. And the pot hit a branch and rebounded, and all that red spilled out all over the porcupine's back. And the porcupine gave me a look, same as saying, "You're gonna pay for that, bucko." And it sank into a crouch and prepared to pounce. But then it froze, and it froze some more. And it stayed frozen until a great roar filled the air, and it came from behind me. And I turned around to see a second porcupine who leaped over me and chased after the first porcupine, both of them screaming and yowling and crashing through the underbrush. Well, the yowling eventually faded as the critters chased each other into the next county, and when I couldn't hear them anymore, I got up and tiptoed down to the lake to wash my hands off. After all that, the last thing I wanted was to be caught red-handed.